When Belly said,
"If anyone was the villain, it was me."
Nadie va a hacer la pregunta, queríamos estar.
it made me realize that she really blames herself for a lot of what happened between her, Jeremiah, and Conrad. I've heard a lot of talks throughout this entire series about how many people believe that Belly doesn't take accountability for her actions, that it's her fault that Jeremiah and Conrad don't have a good relationship, and many people have called her the villain. And I don't subscribe to that idea because, like I've said before, I don't think that any of the characters in The Summer I Turned Pretty are villains or perfect. I think they're all flawed human beings with their own set of baggage and issues and flaws, but we all know that Belly gets a lot of hate. A lot of her decisions and actions throughout the series have not been the greatest, but because we've been missing a lot of Belly's inner dialogue for most of season 3, we haven't really known how she feels about her own role in everything. We then learn a lot about how she does feel about her own role in everything in this scene.
You know, Conrad, I think it was quite romantic what you did. Proclaiming your love to Isabel moments before she was about to marry your brother.
Didn't you think that was a fucked up time ago?
To be fair, I didn't start the conversation thinking that I was going to declare my love for her.
But of course you can hold it in any longer, and that's what makes it romantic.
I think my brother might disagree with you on that one.
It's like something out of a movie. Half the people looking at the screen screaming, do it, Conrad. And the other half are all like, ah! Don't do it! Don't do it!
Yes, in the movie he's the villain.
No, God. If anyone was the villain, it was me.
Nadie va a hacer la pregunta, queríamos estar haciéndonos.
And one thing I thought was really important to note was the way that Conrad looked at Belly when she said, "If anyone was the villain, it was me." He kind of looks at her and subtly shakes his head no. It's very subtle, but he sort of gives her this look as though he's saying, "Don't talk about yourself like that." It's almost like he's saying, "Don't talk about the person that I love like that." And they hold each other's gaze, and I feel like she knows what he's saying through that look he's giving her. She can tell that he doesn't agree.
I think I was kind of hiding out at first. It was really hard and really lonely, and I guess I kind of did think that I deserved that.
I know you're not the villain, right?
Come on. We both know I am. I came between you and Jer. I broke your family.
We all broke it. It was not on you to keep our family together. We were kids. We weren't trying to hurt each other.
I think without Belly's internal dialogue, a lot of people assumed that she did just kind of run off to Paris without a second thought about everything that was happening back at home and had just kind of happily moved on. But she does confirm in this scene that she felt like she broke the Fisher family and in a way was punishing herself. And it's interesting that Conrad had actually predicted that that was exactly how he felt when he said this.
Before I came here, I thought that you might be hiding out. Like, maybe you were punishing yourself for everything that happened. Like you'd sent yourself into exile, and not because I thought you deserved that, but more because that's kind of what I was doing for a long time.
I do like that he makes a point to clarify that that is not how he feels, when he says, "Not that I think you deserve that." It was actually an interesting reminder that him and Belly have a lot in common. He says that it's partially what he did too, and I think when he left for California for 4 years and never came back, he was also in a way punishing himself for everything that happened and couldn't forgive himself for the mistakes that he felt he made. And Belly here confirms that that is what she was doing first as well, at least initially. I think she knows that ultimately, whether she meant to or not, her decisions and actions did end up hurting both Conrad and Jeremiah. Not that she was the only player in all of it, she certainly wasn't. But she is really feeling guilty for that. And I think hearing Conrad say to her that she is not the villain, and that it wasn't her fault and she didn't break anything or anyone, and that they were just kids, will probably bring her a lot of peace and bring her the ability to fully forgive herself. So then we see another example of how Belly really blames herself and feels guilty in this scene.
Do you remember the last time we danced?
Prom? Not my finest moment.
I was such a brat about it. I had envisioned like this perfect prom movie. You know, we dance for hours and then go back to the hotel and...
Make love?
Yes, Conrad, have sex. Instead,
I yelled at you in the rain and ran off like a little bitch. You'll probably remember.
it's pretty unforgettable.
Almost as unforgettable as you telling me to fuck off at my mom's funeral.
I said go to hell, not fuck off.
That makes it a lot better.
And I actually really liked that Belly brought this up because since that happened at prom in season 2, there's been a lot of dialogue around that where Belly perceived it as Conrad breaking up with her at prom. But when you kind of go back and watch that scene, that doesn't seem like that's actually quite what happened. When prom happened, Belly was lacking a little bit of understanding for what Conrad was going through and didn't really, I think, provide him the space to grieve. You know, his mother was dying. She was just kind of at that point more focused on how he was acting towards her. And I think because she was very insecure and self-conscious, she perceived it as him not wanting her or not kind of giving her the affection and reassurance that she was needing at that time. So it really says a lot about Belly's growth and her character arc that she kind of, you know, jokingly refers to herself as a brat here, where she says that she was picturing sort of this perfect prom experience, and when that didn't happen, she really lashed out at Conrad. So it seems like she does recognize that that was a little bit immature and it wasn't very sensitive to what was going on with Conrad at the time. And we haven't really gotten a chance to see her talk about that yet until this scene. They even talk in this scene about how Belly told Conrad to go to hell at his own mother's funeral, and, you know, we know already that she felt bad about that. She talked to Conrad about that and apologized in season 2 in this scene.
I've been trying to figure out how to say it. How to apologize for that day. Susanna's funeral.
Belly, you don't have to apologize for
Please, just let me say this. I never meant to make that day about me. I was awful to you. I mean, I'm so ashamed of how I acted. It's just not how I wanted the day to go at all. I wanted to be there for you. That's why I went to go find you in the rec room.
It's fine.
No, it's not fine. It wasn't fine.
And I actually have a bit of a theory that in that scene that we just saw where she apologizes to Conrad for how she acted at Susanna's funeral, I think she would have also apologized for what happened at prom had Jeremiah not interrupted their conversation at the store. That scene in season 2 between Belly and Conrad was actually one of my favorite scenes of theirs together and one of my favorite conversations of theirs together in the entire series. And there's a lot of scenes that are my favorites with the two of them. But I really like that scene because when you actually look at the timeline, it's not very long after they broke up, and she does take accountability and apologize and tell him how ashamed she felt of herself. And in turn, Conrad is very graceful and forgiving and understanding. And I think as much as Belly and Conrad have struggled with their communication throughout the series, that scene was actually a positive example of their communication. Belly tells him that she's sorry, tells him how she felt, takes accountability. He hears her out, he seems to accept her apology, and they actually have this really sweet moment together. And I remember watching that scene during season 2 and being kind of annoyed and frustrated that Jeremiah interrupted the conversation because I think they had more to say to each other. To me, this scene here in season 3, episode 11, with them talking about prom is sort of a continuation of that conversation from season 2, even though that was several years ago at this point. The only difference is now they're both a lot more mature, and we can see how much they've grown, and they're almost able to inject a little bit of humor into the conversation and look back on everything that happened and laugh a little bit about it. And when they're talking about prom here in season 3, Conrad even kind of takes some of the blame for what happened when he says this.
Instead, I yelled at you in the rain and ran off like a little bitch.
So I think at this point in their conversation, it almost doesn't even matter whose fault it was. Neither of them wants to blame the other. Both of them are kind of taking the blame on their own shoulders. And again, it just shows a lot of growth and maturity in their conversation and how they view each other, because they're both kind of jumping at the opportunity to say, hey, I'm the one who messed up and I should have done things differently. And it does take a lot of maturity to do that. I think it isn't any one person's fault what happened between the two of them. Like most relationships where there is true love present, and the relationship breaks down, it's usually because of a series of actions or decisions or events. And so I don't think it was all Belly's fault or all Conrad's fault. I think they both, had a part to play, and they were both going through different difficult things at the time. But the point I want to come back to is, I would say, the level of anger that Belly as a character faces, where people say that she never owns up to anything and this is all her fault and she never takes accountability. I don't think we've ever really been able to come to that conclusion in season 3 because we haven't had her internal dialogue. So it's a huge assumption to assume that she, doesn't take accountability or doesn't feel bad or doesn't feel guilty when we haven't really heard a lot of her thoughts. And like I said, she did show us in season 2 that she apologized for what happened at Susanna's funeral, and I really felt that she was sincere in her apology to Conrad, and I do feel that she genuinely did feel really bad for that. But like I said, then we lost her internal dialogue in a lot of season 3. And in season 3, she's had 4 to 5 years to kind of look back and reflect on her own actions and behavior. And you can see that she really grapples with her own role to play in everything. I strongly believe that we are a lot harder on female characters. I've seen this conversation going around in the context of The Summer I Turned Pretty. A lot of people will say, oh, Belly's not a complex female character. I disagree. I think it would be fun to do a separate video on that maybe later. But it seems like we're able to recognize where Jeremiah has grown. I've seen a lot of analysis on Jeremiah's growth towards the end of season 3. And I'm also seeing a lot of conversation about Conrad's growth at this point in season 3. And again, I fully agree. He has done so much personal reflection and growth. And we can see that his character has come so far. And I just wish that as a whole, we could do the same for Belly. Because she has grown and she has been very clearly taking the time to reflect. And just because we don't always see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. So I thought it was really nice to see her actually talk to Conrad about how she has felt guilty and the ways in which she has kind of been holding the blame on her own shoulders. And it was one of the kind of smaller themes shown in this episode that I really liked. So I'm planning to go scene by scene through season 3, episode 11, not necessarily in order as you can see, but I often in the past have felt like I have to rush through my deep dive videos because before you know it, Wednesday rolls around again and I'm trying to stay current. But I actually feel like with the finale, it gives me a little bit of breathing room to slowly go through the scenes and break down everything with you all together, because there was so much from this episode that I really want to dig into. And it seems like we're going to have plenty of time to do that before the movie comes out. So even though I'm going scene by scene and covering everything, if there's anything you really want me to talk about in particular, any specific conversations or scenes that are on your mind, just let me know and I'll make sure that I cover them.